I was 67 when I lost two close friends within just 6 months. Neither had any major disease, at least, not one they were diagnosed with, but both had one thing in common: habits they thought were harmless, even normal. I started wondering what if the things we do every day are silently shortening our lives, so I started digging, reflecting, and changing. And today, I want to share with you the 5 most common habits that I discovered are slowly killing us seniors, sometimes without a single warning sign. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your daily routine the same way again. I thought skipping meals was smart until my doctor gave me a wake-up call. I used to think I was doing something right. You see, after I turned 65, I became more mindful of my weight. I wasn't obese, but I had developed a bit of a belly. And with the media constantly talking about fasting, carb cutting, and weight control, I figured skipping a meal or two might be a good idea. I started small, just skipping breakfast. Then, I began pushing lunch later and later. Some days, I'd only have one real meal. And I thought, well, I'm not hungry, so this must be working. But then, something strange started happening. I noticed I was more tired, even after a good night's sleep. My legs felt weaker going up the stairs. My balance was slightly off. And I'd forget small things: where I put my phone, whether I'd taken my pills, what day of the week it was. At first, I laughed it off, just senior moments, I told myself, but then I stumbled in the kitchen one morning, hitting my hip against the counter. That's when I knew something was off. When I finally brought it up to my doctor, he looked at me with a kind of concerned disappointment. He said something I'll never forget: "You're starving your muscles, and your heart is one of them." I blinked, not quite understanding, but I thought skipping meals was healthy at my age. He shook his head. "Not when you're over 60. At this stage in life, skipping meals doesn't help you, it can slowly kill you." That statement hit me like a train. He explained that, as we age, our bodies naturally lose muscle mass, a process called sarcopenia. It starts as early as our 40s, but after 60, it accelerates rapidly if we're not eating right. And by not eating regularly, especially missing protein-packed meals, I was speeding up my muscle loss. I was becoming weaker, even if I couldn't see it in the mirror. Worse, the heart, being a muscle too, was also being affected. I sat there, stunned. He continued, "Your body isn't getting the fuel it needs. You're losing energy, focus, and strength, not because of age, but because you're running on empty." It made so much sense. I had chalked it all up to normal aging, but it wasn't normal. It was avoidable. He then asked me a simple question: "Do you want to stay independent at 75, 80, even 90? Because if you keep skipping meals, it won't be age that puts you in a wheelchair. It'll be weakness." That was my turning point. When I got home, I started paying attention to what I ate, and when I ate, I realized something shocking: I hadn't had a breakfast with real protein in over a year. My lunches were random at best. Some days I'd only eat toast or biscuits. My dinners were usually late and heavy, trying to make up for what I missed earlier, so I made a plan. The first thing I did was reintroduce breakfast. Nothing fancy, just 2 boiled eggs and some whole grain toast, or a protein shake with Greek yogurt and a banana. Within a week I felt more energized in the mornings. No more fog. My balance improved. Then I tackled lunch. I started making a small plate with lean meat, some greens, and a handful of nuts. Nothing overwhelming. But suddenly, that 2 p.m. crash I used to have, gone. I didn't need an afternoon nap anymore. Dinner stayed simple but satisfying: grilled fish, lentils, a piece of dark chocolate, if I felt like dessert. But no more late-night carb-heavy meals. The result? 3 weeks in, I could feel the difference. My energy returned. I walked longer distances. My legs felt stronger. Even my mood improved. I wasn't just eating more, I was fueling my body with what it needed, not what was convenient. But the biggest surprise came during my follow-up visit. My doctor smiled as he looked at my blood work. "You've reversed your muscle decline," he said. "Your protein levels are back on track, and your blood pressure has improved too." That's when I realized something powerful is not just about food, it's about independence. It's about survival. And if you're like, "I was skipping meals because you think you don't need them," please hear me. That habit could be taking years off your life. You don't need massive changes, just consistency. Eat something with protein at every meal. Don't skip breakfast, it's your body's first opportunity to start healing. Include healthy fats, like olive oil or avocado, to keep your brain sharp. Stay hydrated. Seniors often confuse thirst with fatigue. And most importantly, don't wait until you feel weak to start eating strong. Your body is talking. You just need to listen before it starts screaming. Why I stopped sitting for hours even though I wasn't in pain. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon, and I was doing what I thought was perfectly harmless, sitting in my recliner with the newspaper, sipping tea, and watching the news. I must have sat there for nearly 3 hours without even realizing it. And if I'm being honest, that wasn't unusual for me. After all, I wasn't in pain. I wasn't sick. I had done my morning walk, so I figured I'd earned a little downtime. But it was during a routine health seminar at the local community center that my perspective flipped upside down. The speaker, a geriatric specialist, said something that stopped me mid-sip. Sitting more than 7 hours a day increases your risk of early death even if you exercise regularly. I remember thinking, wait a second, that can't be right. I walk every morning, but as he spoke, I began to reflect on my daily routine. Wake up, sit at the breakfast table, sit for my morning reading, sit in front of the TV, sit to check emails, sit during lunch, nap, sit some more, dinner, TV, bed. By the time I counted it all, I was clocking in about 9 to 10 hours of sitting per day, and that was on a good day. Suddenly, my morning 30-minute walk didn't seem like such a strong defense. The doctor went on to explain something I'd never heard before: sitting disease. It's not an official diagnosis, but it's a term researchers use to describe the negative effects of prolonged sedentary behavior. He explained how too much sitting slows your circulation, reduces muscle activity, increases insulin resistance, and even weakens the bones in your spine and hips. And the kicker: it silently raises the risk of heart disease, diabetes, blood clots, and premature death. He even said that older adults who sit more than 8 hours a day are twice as likely to suffer cognitive decline. That got me. It was like he was talking directly to me. So when I got home, I did a little experiment. I wore a cheap step tracker for a week, not to measure how far I walked, but how often I moved. The results shocked me. While I was reaching about 4,000 steps per day, which isn't terrible, I was still going hours without moving at all. I realized that I could go from breakfast to lunch and only get up once to use the restroom. That's when I made the decision. I had to change, not just by walking more, but by breaking up my sitting. Here's exactly what I didn't. It might help you too. The 32-3 rule. That changed everything. I set a timer on my phone for every 30 minutes. When it buzzed, I stood up just for 3 minutes. Sometimes I walked to the kitchen. Other times, I did a few stretches, marched in place, or did a simple chore like folding laundry or watering a plant. It didn't seem like much, but after a few days I felt more alert, especially in the afternoons when I used to feel sluggish. My legs stopped feeling as stiff, my lower back pain eased, and I began to notice that my evening sleep improved. No more tossing and turning because my body had been dormant all day. I upgraded my sitting, too. When I did sit, I became more mindful. I got rid of the soft recliner that encouraged slouching, and replaced it with a firmer chair with better back support. I added a cushion that encouraged me to sit upright. I also started practicing what the speaker called active sitting. It sounds odd, but it's simple. Just engaging your muscles while sitting. I'd tighten my thighs or gently lift my heels to engage my calves. Even small muscle activity counts. TV time became movement time instead of zoning out in front of the television. I made it a rule. Every commercial break, I had to move. I'd walk in circles, do light stretches, or even practice balance exercises like standing on one foot while holding the counter. It felt silly at first, but over time, it became second nature. Now, I don't even think about it. It's just part of my rhythm. And then came the real test. A few months into my new routine, my daughter came to visit. After spending the afternoon with me, she said, "Dad, you seem lighter on your feet. Have you been working out?" I smiled. Not really. Just stopped sitting so much. That evening, I reflected on how much had changed, not just physically, but mentally. I felt more energized, sharper, and even happier. I no longer felt chained to my chair. Instead, I felt in control. Why it matters so much for seniors: if you're over 60, your body isn't as resilient as it used to be. Every hour you sit without moving chips away at your circulation, muscle tone, joint mobility, and brain function. But the good news is, you can reverse that damage just by standing and moving a little more. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need to jog marathons. You just need to interrupt your sitting. Here are a few simple ways to start. Place your remote or phone across the room so you have to stand to get it. Drink more water. It forces you to get up and use the bathroom. Set a timer or use a step counter with hourly alerts. Stand up when you talk on the phone. Walk around the house during ad breaks or between chapters of your book. Trust me, it adds up, and your body will thank you. I used to think stillness was rest, but now I know much stillness is slow decay. Motion isn't just medicine, it's life. And at our age, every step truly counts. The truth about my sleep routine that nearly cost me my life. I used to think sleep was just ... optional. You know what I mean? You reach a certain age, and it just doesn't come like it used to. I'd lie in bed for hours some nights, tossing and turning. Other nights, I'd fall asleep just fine, but wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. wide-eyed like I'd had a full night's rest, except I hadn't. So eventually, I just accepted it. Old people don't sleep much, I'd tell myself. I thought it was normal, maybe even a sign I was aging well. I took pride in being one of those folks who could function on 5 to 6 hours of sleep. But let me tell you something now. That habit nearly cost me my life. It started subtly. I'd find myself dozing off during the middle of reading, or even mid-conversation. I'd get dizzy when I stood up too fast, my memory slipping, and the worst part, I was irritable, moody. Even my grandkids noticed it one morning. While reaching for something in the top kitchen cabinet, I lost my balance and fell backward. It wasn't a bad fall, thank God, but it scared me. And it made me question, what's really going on with me? That fall became my wake-up call literally and figuratively. At my next doctor's visit, I mentioned my sleep issues casually, thinking it wasn't a big deal. I'll never forget what he said. Sleep isn't a luxury at your age, a lifeline. He explained that sleep deprivation in seniors isn't just about feeling tired, it can lead to serious, even life-threatening consequences. The silent damage I didn't see coming. He told me poor sleep was linked to high blood pressure, heart disease, increased fall risk, type 2 diabetes, weight gain, weakened immunity, and even dementia. I blinked. From just not sleeping enough. He nodded. Absolutely. The brain clears toxins and resets memory during deep sleep. If you're not getting enough of it, you're accelerating cognitive decline without even realizing it. That hit me. Like a punch to the chest. I thought I was just getting older. But in truth, my poor sleep was making me older faster, and I wasn't alone. Studies show that over 50% of people over 65 suffer from some form of sleep disturbance, and most of them never seek help. So that day, I made a promise to myself. I would reclaim my sleep, but I had no idea just how many bad habits I had that were sabotaging it. Mistake number 1. My evening cup of tea every night around 8 p.m. I'd brew myself a cup of tea, usually black or green. I found it relaxing. What I didn't realize is that it was loaded with caffeine, and caffeine can stay in your system for up to 8 hours. My doctor explained that even if I fell asleep, the caffeine could prevent me from entering deep, restorative sleep stages. I switched to chamomile or valerian root, caffeine-free, and actually helpful for sleep. Within a week, I started sleeping more soundly. Mistake number 2. Screens before bed. Like many, I had gotten into the habit of checking my phone or watching TV in bed. I thought it helped me wind down. Turns out, blue light from screens, melatonin, the hormone that tells our brain it's time to sleep. No wonder I was lying awake for hours. So I made a new rule: no screens an hour before bed. Instead, I started reading physical books, journaling, or listening to calming music. Mistake number 3. No sleep schedule. I used to go to bed whenever I felt tired. 10:30 one night, 12 o'clock the next, maybe 9 o'clock the night after that. No wonder my body was confused, so I created a routine: bed by 10 p.m. Wake up at 6:30 a.m. every day, even weekends. It felt strange at first, but after a couple weeks, I began falling asleep faster, staying asleep longer, and waking up refreshed. I created a bedtime ritual. I now treat bedtime like a sacred routine. Around 9 p.m., I dim the lights in the house. I put on calming music or nature sounds. I take a warm shower. I write in a small gratitude journal, just 3 things I'm thankful for from the day. This simple act quiets my mind. Then, I sip my herbal tea, brush my teeth, and get into bed with a good book. Before I know it, I'm yawning by 9:50, and asleep by 10:00. No sleeping pills, no alcohol, just rhythm. The results that changed my life after about a month of real, uninterrupted sleep, the transformation was shocking. My memory improved. I could recall names, dates, even old stories that used to elude me. My energy returned. No more naps in the middle of the day, or dragging my feet. My mood shifted. I laughed more. I was patient again with my grandkids. My blood pressure lowered, without changing my medication, but the biggest difference, I felt younger. My body moved with more ease. My brain felt sharper. I even lost a bit of weight, just from my hormones balancing out. What I want you to know: if you're not sleeping well, please don't brush it off like I did. It's not just aging, it's a signal, a warning, one that, if ignored, could take away your independence. Or worse. And the good news is, you can fix it. Here's how to start. Stick to a schedule: same sleep and wake time daily. Avoid caffeine and alcohol after 2 p.m. Create a calming wind-down routine. Limit naps to 20 to 30 minutes. No later than 3 p.m. Keep your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. Speak to your doctor if you suspect sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or insomnia. Remember, sleep isn't wasted time, it's repair time. It's when your body heals, your brain resets, and your soul restores. If I could go back and tell my younger self one thing, it would be this: don't be proud of running on little sleep. Be proud of protecting it. This everyday food combo was slowly destroying my heart for most of my life. I considered myself a pretty sensible eater. I wasn't one for junk food or wild eating habits. I never smoked. I kept my drinking to a social glass of wine now and then, so you can imagine my shock when I started having occasional chest tightness and heart palpitations. It wasn't a heart attack, not yet, but it was enough to scare me. I remember one particular evening. I had just finished dinner: roast beef, mashed potatoes, gravy, a soft drink, and a small chocolate pudding for dessert. Within 20 minutes, I felt this weird flutter in my chest, like my heart was off rhythm. I got lightheaded. My fingers felt tingly. I sat down, breathed deeply, and eventually it passed. But I'll tell you this: I didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, I saw my doctor. After a series of tests and questions, he asked me the simplest thing: what did you eat last night? I rattled off my usual dinner: hearty, comforting, filling. He raised his eyebrows. You just described a metabolic bomb for someone your age. At first I was confused. Then he explained something that changed how I look at food forever. The hidden danger of food combinations, he told me it wasn't just the ingredients I was eating, it was how I was combining them. Salty meat, starchy mashed potatoes, sugary dessert, caffeinated soda, all in one sitting. He explained how that combination creates a storm of glucose, sodium, saturated fat, and insulin spikes, which for a 25-year-old body might handle okay, but for a 70-year-old heart, it's like running a marathon with a weighted vest and no training. What the? I thought was a classic dinner was actually stressing my cardiovascular system every single night, and this wasn't a one-time thing. I'd been eating like this for years, I asked him, but I don't eat fast food. I cook most meals at home. He smiled gently. That's good, but home-cooked doesn't always mean heart-healthy. It's the combinations that matter now. Salt plus fat plus sugar equals a dangerous trio. He told me that one of the worst combinations for aging bodies is high sodium plus high saturated fat plus refined sugar, especially in a single meal. That combo triggers inflammation, elevates blood pressure, and forces the pancreas and heart to work overtime. He pointed out that salty foods like gravy, canned soups, cured meats, and even sauces sneak in more sodium than we realize. When paired with saturated fat from red meat or fried food, and followed by sugary desserts or soda, the result is a spike roller coaster that leaves older bodies struggling to recover. And get this, many medications for blood pressure, diabetes, or cholesterol, they can actually be less effective when taken alongside these food types. That was the eye-opener. I wasn't just eating poorly, I was canceling out my medication with my dinner. What I changed and what happened. Next, that very day, I started making changes. Not drastic ones, just smarter ones. 1. I separated starch from fat-heavy meat. Instead of eating mashed potatoes and gravy with red meat, I'd have either a lean protein or the starchy side, not both. If I had roast chicken, I'd pair it with greens and sweet potato. If I wanted rice, I'd eat it with lentils and roasted vegetables. 2. I replaced soda and coffee after meals with water or herbal tea. That one change alone made a huge difference. Within a week, I noticed less bloating, more energy, and fewer nighttime palpitations. 3. I stopped eating dessert right after dinner. If I craved something sweet, I'd wait 2 hours. Often the craving passed, and when it didn't, I'd reach for fruit, dark chocolate, or yogurt. 4. I added fiber and healthy fats. I started adding flaxseed to my oatmeal, avocado to my salads, and switched to olive oil instead of butter. These helped balance my blood sugar and cholesterol levels. 5. I practiced food spacing. I learned from a nutritionist that eating all your food in one sitting causes a huge metabolic load. Now, I eat smaller meals, more frequently, every 4 hours, giving my body time to digest and respond properly. The results? A new lease on life within a month of changing my food combinations. I had a follow-up appointment. The numbers told the story. My blood pressure had dropped by 12 points. My resting heart rate stabilized. My digestive issues gone. I had lost 4 pounds without even trying. But beyond the numbers, I felt better. No more weird chest flutters. No more heaviness after eating. No more late-night heartburn or foggy mornings. I had more energy for walks, more focus during conversations, and a deeper sense of confidence that I was finally treating my body the way it deserved. What you eat together matters more than you think. Here's a thing we seniors aren't told enough. Our digestion slows, our organs weaken, and our ability to tolerate food stress decreases with age. That means food combinations that used to be fine at 40 or 50 can damage your heart at 70. Here are a few dangerous combos to avoid, or at least rethink. Red meat plus mashed potatoes plus gravy, too much fat, starch, and salt in one go. Try lean chicken with vegetables instead. Pasta plus garlic bread plus dessert, all simple carbs. Your blood sugar will spike like a rocket. Instead, pair pasta with greens, and skip the bread. Fried fish plus fries plus sodata. Classic harmless combo, but it's a minefield for inflammation and cholesterol. Cereal plus fruit juice seems light, but it's a sugar bomb first thing in the morning. Opt for oatmeal with nuts and berries. Smarter combos that support longevity: grilled salmon plus quinoa plus steamed broccoli, lentil soup plus mixed greens plus olive oil, oatmeal plus flaxseed plus blueberries, roasted vegetables plus chickpeas plus tahini dressing, Greek yogurt plus almonds plus cinnamon. You don't need to give up the foods you love. Just rethink how you pair them. Your heart and your brain will thank you for it. My final thought on food: if I could go back and speak to myself 5 years ago, I'd say, stop eating like you're 40. Start eating like your heart depends on it, because it does. I never thought dinner could be dangerous. But now I know. The wrong food combinations, eaten daily, can become the silent killers we never see coming. But the right choices, they can rebuild your energy, protect your organs, and give you years back. And trust me, those extra years feel amazing when your body is strong enough to enjoy them. The silent killer I ignored for 10 years, stress. Out of all the habits I've had to confront over the years, bad eating, skipping meals, poor sleep, nothing was more invisible or more damaging than the one I ignored the most. Stress. It's strange, isn't it? We seniors are often seen as the ones who've made it through the storm, We're supposed to be enjoying the calm after the chaos of raising families, working jobs, paying mortgages. But here's the truth. I rarely admitted to anyone. I carried stress like a second skin, and I didn't even realize how heavy it was until it nearly broke me. I thought I was coping just fine after my wife passed. Everyone told me how strong I was. "You're handling it so well," they'd say, and maybe I was, on the outside. I still paid the bills. I still smiled around the grandkids. I kept up with my garden, my walks, my routine. But inside, I was tight, always tight, not just emotionally, but physically. My neck was stiff every morning. My jaw hurt. My chest had a dull ache that would come and go, almost like it was whispering something I refused to hear. I chalked it up to grief. Aging, maybe arthritis. But it wasn't until I woke up one night gasping for breath with my heart pounding like it was trying to punch its way out of my ribs that I realized this wasn't just stress. This was danger. The panic that changed everything that night. I ended up in the ER. They ran every test. Heart attack. Nope. Blood pressure. High, but manageable. Lungs. Clear. The diagnosis. Panic attack. I couldn't believe it. Panic attack. At my age, I thought those were for teenagers or high-strung executives, but the nurse looked me in the eye and said something I'll never forget. Chronic stress is one of the leading killers in seniors because it's silent, and because most of you pretend it's not there. I sat there in that hospital gown, wires all over me, and realized she was right. How stress was killing me without me knowing. When I finally spoke to a stress counselor a week later, I learned just how destructive long-term stress is for older adults. She explained how stress raises cortisol, the body's fight-or-flight hormone. Now, a little cortisol here and there is fine. It's what kept our ancestors alive. But chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated for weeks, months, even years. And when cortisol stays high, everything starts breaking down. Blood pressure rises, heart rate stays elevated, sleep becomes shallow. The immune system weakens, memory and focus start to fade, inflammation increases, leading to arthritis, heart disease, even cancer. Shay told me bluntly, "You can eat kale and jog all you want, but if you don't deal with the stress inside you, you're still heading toward a breakdown." That shook me, because I thought I was doing everything else right. But my stress? I had buried it under politeness, routines, and distractions. How I finally faced it. Didn't want to go to therapy, not because I didn't believe in it, but because I didn't want to talk about my feelings. Like many men my age, I was raised to be strong, push through, and not complain. But after that night in the ER, I knew something had to change, so I started small. 1. I created a stillness hour every morning. No TV, no phone, just a cup of tea by the window. Sometimes I journeyed, sometimes I just sat and watched the birds. That silence, once uncomfortable, became sacred. It taught me to listen to myself again. Point 2. I started breathing, really breathing. For seconds, in. Hold for 4 for seconds. Out. Hold again. I did it 5 times, 3 times a day. It slowed my heart rate and grounded me. 3. I reconnected with nature. Every day, I made it a point to walk in the garden or a nearby park. The air, the trees, the sunlight, all of it, helped untangle the knots I didn't know I had inside me. 4. I reached out, I called old friends. I started going to the community center twice a week for a senior discussion group. We talked, we laughed, we even cried. I realized I wasn't alone, and I never had been. 5. I forgave. I had been carrying guilt for things I couldn't change, decisions from decades ago, arguments with loved ones, regrets I couldn't voice. One day I wrote letters I never intended to send, just to let it out. And I felt lighter than I had in years. The healing power of letting go. Within 2 months, I saw results I hadn't expected. My blood pressure lowered without needing a new medication. My chest tightness vanished. I started sleeping deeper than I had in years. Even my digestive issues improved because stress affects the gut too. But perhaps most importantly, I felt peaceful, not fake peace, not numbness, but real, quiet, calm, like I was finally living in my own skin again. Stress doesn't look like what you think. If you're reading this and thinking, "I'm not stressed, I'm just tired," please, pause. Stress in seniors doesn't always show up as panic. It can look like forgetfulness, irritability, constant fatigue, stiff muscles, poor digestion, racing thoughts at night, a tight chest that comes and goes. We've been taught to ignore these signs, but ignoring them doesn't make them harmless. It makes them deadly. What I want every senior to know: you don't need to meditate on a mountaintop. You don't need to find yourself. You just need to start unpacking the emotions you've carried for too long. Stress might not be as obvious as high cholesterol or a bad back, but it's just as lethal. And the best part? You can start healing from it right now. Take 5 deep breaths. Write down one thing you're grateful for. Call someone you love. Walk outside for 10 minutes. Cry if you need to. Laugh even more. Let go of what no longer serves you. Life is too short and too precious to carry invisible weights. My final message to why I used to think aging meant growing weaker, but now I know it can also mean growing wiser, lighter, and freer. Don't let stress steal the years you've earned. You've survived so much. You've made it this far. Now it's time to live the rest of your life lighter, calmer, and fully alive.